out on the front row of the grid. 2 Xerox Ducatis, an Alstara Corona Suzuki and a Tenkate Winston Honda, as we wait for those lights to go and the vital start. Who's going to get it this time?
Lanzhi's got away well.
Lanzhi gets away well. Now he braked himself going into the first turn from out there. Oof, James Toseland gets swept across the front up by Norihaga, and Toseland's got a mediocre start once again with Yukio Kagayama alongside him. And he's behind Karl Muggeridge, and number 11 Troy Corser at the front. Second place Norihaga, third place for Lanzhi, and not a good start either for Chris Vermeulen. He's got buried, he's way back. Look at Vermeulen, he's worse off than Toseland. So a nightmare start for the first race winner. He's got a lot of work to do, bike number 77, and his title rival is at the front, number 11 Troy Corser.
And this is the start that Lanzhi needed. He didn't need to make any mistakes. He was quick enough in the first race, once he got into his rhythm, to catch up anything that he might lose, being a little bit more cautious on the start, and that's exactly what he's done. Now he can get into it, he can settle into it, and let's see what he can do properly.
So the boy who was originally born in Cesena in 1981 and now lives in Bologna is lying in third place.
Oh, that was close.
And he was trying one on Norihaga then, and look at the way that... is that Muggeridge? or is it Vermeulen? No, it's Muggeridge. Muggeridge just scythed through inside. Well, Muggers reckoned that he could get he's had his bike working really well around here. He was deeply dismayed and shocked really by that early first race exit. And already he's on the case here. He's through to third place.
We got all confused actually, Jack. It was actually Vermeulen that's way down, and Muggeridge who made not such a bad start.
Sorry, I beg to differ. I pointed out that Vermeulen had made an awful start and was behind Toseland downfield. There he is. There's Toseland, and here comes Vermeulen just behind him, and Kagayama in front of the two of them. So two of the men on the front row made awful starts. Norihaga, of course, made a blinding start, and Troy Corser made the start that he absolutely wanted. Because and who's down? It might be Corser. No!
Yep.
Corser's gone down. Well, he hasn't been wholly happy with things. So, well, isn't that amazing? Troy Corser, he's down in the grass. The bike may be fit enough for him to go, but perhaps it's not. Oh, James.
Front end. The same crashes everybody seems to be having around this circuit. They're all front-end crashes.
That's the first mistake Troy Corser's made.
And I tell you what, did you see how he clung onto it? And the reason for that is if you get onto the grass and you don't hold the bike on the floor, sometimes it can flip up, turn over and do a lot more damage, and there's no way you're getting back onto it if it starts to flip over. If you keep it on the floor and the levers don't snap off, you can generally get back on. And that's Lanzhi going up the inside of Muggers.
Oh, and hitting him.
I tell you what, it's not often somebody does that to Muggers. Not often at all.
And this is Norihaga at the front, Lorenzo Lanzhi challenging. Do you know how lucky Troy Corser is? The fact that Vermeulen is so far back in the field. This is Vermeulen's chance.
And I tell you what, that pass by Lanzhi,
wow, Lanzhi's going to make himself a lot of friends, isn't he, in World Superbikes this weekend?
He certainly is, and certainly Muggeridge, that will have put fire in his belly, because Muggeridge is a man who doesn't like any of that, and he likes to give as good as you get. If you want to ride hard with Muggers, he'll have it, and he'll give it you back.
So that's two brutal passes then by Lorenzo Lanzhi on number 57 Xerox Ducati. Take him to the front as we complete the second lap, only the second lap of an incident-packed race here. And Norihaga takes a look on the Fabien Foray line and thinks better of it. Troy Corser has picked himself up and got going again.
And he's down in...
We don't know where he is.
We don't know where he is.
He's 26th. It's just in front of Michael Schulten. Oh, dear me. So the 42-year-old reigning German German Superbike champion. Michael Schulten's also had a dreadful start, and he's right back in the graveyard there with Troy Corser as we look at the battle going on at the front. And at the moment, Lanzhi is in the lead, but Vermeulen is making progress. He's got the better of Kagayama. He's moved through into 6th place, but he's still just behind James Toseland. So he and Toseland really do need to put a move on now. Andrew Pitt lies between them and the front three.
And certainly Lanzhi is the man who is riding the hardest out of the first 4 or 5, for sure. You see how he turns it, he runs it, he can run it wide mid-corner, still get it turned back out, and through the flip-flops, the left and then right, he's super tough. He just turns it really, he actually forces it through the corners.
I was just going to say, and it's come up on screen, he did a 1:40.39 in that first, in that last lap against the 140.9 of Muggers. And believe it or not, a 141.18 from Hager, but you wouldn't think so when Hager's now 2 inches from his back wheel.
This will be a faster lap by Hager.
It certainly will be. He's hauled himself right back to within 3 or 4 bike lengths as they hammer across the line. But that Ducati is quick. Well, actually, Hager was quicker.
Yep.
And Hager's down there was the quickest on track, 140.349. Quicker indeed than the previous lap by Lorenzo Lanzhi. So fastest lap of the race so far to Noriyuki Nitro Nori Hager. He's in second place. And this is turning out to be, sizing up to be a rather wonderful contest between these front 6.
Yeah, and of course Vermeulen will actually know full well that Corser's gone down, and he will be desperate to drag as many points back in the championship as what he can. It's a perfect opportunity for him.
Toseland and Vermeulen were the second and third fastest men on track on that previous lap, with a 140.37 and a 140.42 respectively. So they're getting their heads down, they're closing right down now on Andrew Pitt. So Pitti on the second of the Yamaha Italia R1s. They can see the gap opening up ahead of him. They've got to somehow get the better of Andrew or force Andrew on a bit quicker. Steve Martin 11th behind Frankie Killy on the first of the FP1s. Gary McCoy in 13th place ahead of Jose Luis Cardozo and former European Superstock champion, reigning European Superstock champion, Gianluca Visiello. And there goes Toseland. Just as I was thinking he really couldn't waste any time, he puts it underneath Andrew Pitt. Pitti looks over his shoulder and he's going to find that his one of his successors as World Supersports champion is right there with him and desperate to get past. Now, what can Toseland do? He's got a little bit of clear track ahead of him. He marked down a really quick lap on the previous circuit. Across the line, Lanzhi leads. Second is Hager. Third, Muggeridge. Norrie. And here comes Chris Vermeulen. He just tips it in underneath Andrew Pitt.
Yeah, one thing about Vermeulen's overtaking manoeuvres anyway, you never see him with a dirty overtaking manoeuvre. He's always clean, always gets past clean. Safe as you like.
This is turning into a terrific race.
It is, actually, yeah.
Especially when you see someone like Vermeulen with work to do, and he is working hard. Lanzhi still at the front, Hager heckling him all the way. Lanzhi just clinging on at the front. Norrie Hager's with him. There's a gap opening up down to Muggers, and Toseland is catching Muggers. Toseland is moving quicker in fourth place, and he's closing down now on the second, well, in this case, the leading 10 Carter Honda.
I think you'll find the fastest man on track will be Toseland this lap. It'll be his quickest lap.
So a really tense, that's an amazing line that Lanzhi takes around that long turn 9. Amazing the way that he just leaves the apex alone. Norrie Hager pressing for the lead, James.
Lanzhi always seems to be able to run it a little bit wider mid-corner and get a real good slingshot out of all the corners. And when it's bumpy like this, what the riders are saying is, because of the bumps, it's more difficult to run it wider mid-corner and cut it back to an apex, because the bumps mean it's impossible to lean it over any more than the mid-corner to turn it back. So they tend to stick to the inside of the corner. But Lanzhi just seems to be able to do that.
Here comes Norrie Hager. He slips.
He's run wide.
Somebody's run wide, and Lanzhi straight back like a veteran. Hager, last lap, 4 laps complete, 140.083 against 140.086. That's how tight it is at the front. After Hager had done a 140.001, as near as you get to busting the 140 barrier.
And Toseland puts in his quickest lap of the race. Likewise, Vermeulen behind him puts in his quickest lap of the race.
And I hadn't seen Vermeulen, 140.067, the fastest lap of that lap.
Yeah, the fastest person of that lap.
Sorry, the fastest pilot on that lap, you're right. These two at the front, though, they're edging away. They're setting the consistently fastest laps, and that's bad news for Vermeulen in his pursuit of the championship. He must know that he's got a golden opportunity here. The first mistake we've seen. Well, Francis Banner was talking this weekend about the fact that you must never count your chickens, because there is so much racing still be done.
Corser's picked the bike up and he's down to low 40s. That's almost the same pace as the leaders. That's quick.
140.3. 37 seconds behind the leader.
Obviously nothing bent on the bike. and obviously he's not going to catch the leaders, but certainly he's going to make his way through the pack at that rate.
Nori Haga looking threatening, but Lorenzo Lanzhi looking, well, princely, really. I think James Toseland may have lost a place to Chris Vermeulen, the fiery Vermeulen. Well, he's not fiery off the track, but boy, oh boy, when he gets on a motorcycle. Chris Vermeulen, number 77, is now through to make it a Tenkate 3-4 in this race. Come on, James. So that's 6 laps complete, and the fastest man on the circuit, yes, it was Chris Vermeulen, 1:40.052. Kagayama also put in his fastest lap of the race, and he's beginning to close the gap on Andrew Pitt ahead of him. This is great, blasting down the back straight. 170 plus miles an hour, breaking down to 65 for that left-hander at turn 6.
Yeah, one thing about these bikes is there's so much power, it doesn't actually take them that long to get to 170 miles an hour. You're probably talking about a 0 to 60 time for these bikes of less than 2 seconds, and about, well, 3 and a bit to 100 miles an hour. They're very, very quick acceleration, and obviously not a lot of weight compared to a car.
Where's the main strain that sort of acceleration puts on you? Is it wrist, shoulders, forearms?
You just lean forward, and basically a backside, the seats come up at the back, and your backside takes most of the sort of forward thrust. But they don't actually, it's not that violent when you're accelerating. It's only when you think about how fast you are accelerating in numbers and time that you realise how quick these bikes are.
The frustration for Chris Vermeulen at the moment is that his teammate Carl Muggins is just that 1 or 2 tenths slower than these guys are going, and that's making that's opening the gap up ahead of him, ahead of the third place man.
And when you think these bikes weigh 160 odd kilos and produce 210, 220 brake horsepower, that is a lot. That's about 1,200 horsepower per tonne power to weight ratio, which is like putting about
Here comes Vermeulen, sorry to interrupt you, James, but Vermeulen has decided that he really has got to move now, and he slips underneath Carl Muggins. Toseland wants to do the same.
Don't apologise to me, I'll get you back.
It was like
it's like putting a 1,500 horsepower, 1,600 horsepower engine in your sort of family runabout, your average family car. This is
my
good
little
stuff.
Suzuki.
This is good stuff.
It's great.
Toseland wants some of this.
That was a great move by Toseland. He's battered his way underneath Carl Muggins, and now he is attempting to take off after Chris Vermeulen. A battle at the front, a battle right behind. This is going to go all the way. What a mega race.
You would have to put your money in this position. If Haga can stay with Lanzhi, you would have to put your money on, and this is in a real awkward little spot to pass. We've never seen a pass there all day long.
That was the move of a confident man as Kagayama gets past Pitt and into 6th place.
As long as Haga can stay with Lanzhi, you would have to put your money the last 2 laps on Haga. We know there's a question mark over Lanzhi's physical fitness and whether he can keep running at this pace for the whole race. And we know how determined Haga is in the last few laps. And certainly you were dead right when you said that he was frustrated after the first race. He said he would have loved for it to keep going, rain or no, because he was going to launch an attack, and you knew it anyway.
And he certainly looks ready to launch an attack right now on Signor Conzoni's wonderful Yamaha Italia R1. He's in 2nd place, the leader as they cross the line to complete 8 laps. Number 57, Lorenzo Lanzhi.
And the fastest man of those 3 that lap was
Vermeulen.
Mr. Vermeulen. He's making
40.093.
Yeah, pull back 0.2 of a second basically on him that lap.
And the other man who's really ripping is Kagayama, 140.40 on in 6th place now.
Yeah, true. Lacone looking on.
Regis Lacone thinking that should be me.
What have
I gave him all that advice yesterday. Haga goes underneath.
Typical Haga. Haga must think he can pull away, must do.
Corser is in 22nd place, still 37 seconds behind the leaders. Notice that gap hasn't opened up, 140.2.
And still doing low 40s. That was actually one of the fastest laps he was one of the fastest people on that lap. 2nd quickest that lap.
Third quickest after Vermeulen and Lanzhi. Look at this move by Nori Haga, as you said, fairly typical into the left-hander. Now then, can Nori put any space between himself and Lanzhi, or will Lanzhi get himself in a position to shall we say, physically assault him once again.
I think that you wouldn't have seen Haga be so keen to get past Lanzhi if he didn't think like he had a fair chance to get away. There'd be no point. I think Haga thinks he can get away.
And also, he might be aware of the fact that Vermeulen is cutting the gap all the time.
Exactly. If he's getting good lap signals, and I know the team is racing for, because it's my old team, he'll be getting the best lap signals. He'll know exactly what's happening downfield.
Fantastic race going on here. Nori Haga skates into turn 1, 140.7. Lanzhi 140.13 and 140.06. Again, Vermeulen is consistently right on the brink of breaking 140. Here comes Lanzhi again with one of those cheeky overtaking manoeuvres going into that right-hander at turn 4.
Yeah, cheapest chips, that one. And another place we haven't seen much action. But
that's a Fabien Foray move.
It's clean.
And that means, of course, look at Vermeulen backing in at the back of the back straight into, how many backs can I fit into a sentence, into turn 6. And then through the right-hander. Now, this is an uphill, 70 mile an hour, second gear left-hander. And then they're up a short, that uphill crest, and then the long descent towards turn 9, which is that massive 180-degree U-turn, third gear, 80 mile an hour right-hander. With very contrasting lines indeed. Norrie keeps it tight. Lanzhi does the double apex job, and look at Vermeulen's compact style hanging off that win-win Tedkate Honda.
Yeah, and it's not going to be long before he's with him. He is just chipping away and very consistent, like we've come to expect from Vermeulen.
And Vermeulen was 1.371 seconds behind the leader on the last lap. I don't know whether it's gone down that much on this one. And we get the wonderful watery sunshine at last after the beautiful weather we've had up until last night when it started to rain. Great to see the sun back with us here, and especially lighting up such a fabulous dice for the lead. And at the moment, Lanzhi, shortly to turn 24, still has it. The boy from Bologna ahead of Nori Haga. And Haga flexes his chassis up the inside, but it's not quite enough. And on that lap, Vermeulen was again quickest, 140.2 against 140.7 for Norrie, 140.38 for Lanzhi. Tension there in the Ducati camp as Nori Haga tries to go underneath the Ducati, but there's no way there. When do you realise you haven't managed to make the move stick? At what point in that manoeuvre? If you know that the person on the outside of you, or who you are trying to get under, hasn't seen you, well, you're in trouble. If you put your wheel in there and he's seen you, he'll leave your room, but if he hasn't, he'll shut the door and you can soon run into him. And pretty much you're both going down then. The Xerox Ducati of the new boy Lorenzo Lanzhi still leads from Nori Haga and Chris Vermeulen. This blistering battle for the lead, and the other man who I mentioned earlier who is really on the case now, Yukio Kageyama, lapping 140.45 on his last lap, is in 6th place but threatening Carl Muggeridge on the second Tedkate Honda, and has left behind Andrew Pitt. Pitty is really dropping off the pace in 7th place, although he still has about 3.3 seconds over Max Neukirchner's Team Claffey Honda in 8th.
It's into the corners, as always, that Haga's quickies. He's so hard on the brakes and still able to turn it in whilst on the brakes and still hold the tight line.
It's an extraordinary ride by Vermeulen. He was a long way back with a lot of bodies between himself and the leaders, but it looks like it's becoming a little more difficult now. He's actually arrived at this point just behind the men in front.
He's still lapping quicker.
He's still lapping quicker. He's taken another, just a 10th out of Haga, 2/10 out of Lanzhi on that lap. So it's a case of chipping away. We've had 11 laps complete, 13 laps to go here at the Lausitzring race 2.
So still plenty time for Vermeulen to do something about this.
James Tosland is in, at the moment, a slightly isolated 4th place. His last lap was a 140.23, which is, 140.5 was his last against a 140.3 from Kageyama. So Kageyama, although he's 2 places further back, could just threaten James. Not 2 places further back now because he's nipped past Carl Muggeridge. Kageyama moves through into 5th place.
And Corser up to 18th.
Even Clementi's down.
Dear.
That looks like a nasty one. Even Clementi has dropped the Pedicini.
He's moving.
And is that Cardoso? Has Cardoso had it coming together? That's Clementi's bike. And that's Cardoso is being lifted onto the stretcher. Now we have to say that. Whoa, Chris!
Vermeulen kicking up the dust there on the exit of that corner.
Dirt biking again. And we have to say that Jose Luis Cardoso has a rather sad record of having set-tos with people and knocking them down. And certainly his was not the only bike to have gone down right there. And that will of course help Troy Corser's case. Corser is now through to 18th place, 39.5 seconds behind the leader.
They're at it again, these pair.
And they know that Vermeulen's coming.
They do. And is he coming?
Lanzhi. I tell you what, if Lanzhi had that season in 250 GPs, it would have held him in good stead for this sort of fisticuffs, James.
And that's the same.
Again.
He tried the same thing. It never works, that. It's good for us, though. This is fantastic.
Right, Vermeulen, what can he work out when he's got two of them filling the track in front of him? As you said, he's got time on his side. And where's Toseland? Just was a bit concerned. That was a
big
huge
one. Fortunately
moment.
for Lanzhi, it actually held Hager up just as much because he didn't know he was going to get caught in the same. Looked like he would have got caught in the same crash.
That was so close to being a massive eyesight.
It was. Yeah.
I'm not convinced we haven't lost JT. Because the next guys to come over the horizon now, Kageyama, Muggeridge, we've lost Toseland.
We have.
Lost James Toseland, we don't know why, but in the lovely sunshine amidst this sparkling second race, the reigning world champion's gone missing, which is horrible news for him when you see Lorenzo Lanzhi, the replacement Xerox Ducati rider, running riot at the front here. That means that Kageyama goes 4th, as Muggeridge goes 5th, Pitt goes 6th. And it also means that Troy Corser will move into 17th place and start to chip away at possible points.
And he's lapping a good 2 seconds quicker than the 4 or 5 riders in front of him, so he really has possibility of getting points as Corser.
It's Sebastian Junger who's in 15th place, and he's about 13 seconds or a dozen seconds ahead of Troy Corser at the moment. And here comes Toseland. Now, I thought that Toseland may have gone off because he'd crossed the line, and I just wondered whether he'd actually had a big moment going into turn 1. Now he's back out on track. He's just ahead of Giovanni Fusset, who is in 14th place.
Yeah, he's way down.
So he comes past us now. James Toseland crosses the line. He's in 13th place with Bussai, Jambert, Borciani, Brignola and Corser behind him. Meanwhile, back at the front,
Lanzhi's sneaking off.
That huge moment of Lanzhi seems to have unsettled
everybody else,
but not him. Well, James, you did make a very entertaining reference and a very accurate one. His astonishing similarity facially to the great late Harold Daniel, fabled TT winner with the Norton factory team in the late 40s and early 50s.
Yep.
If you put a little pair of those wonderful round John Lennon spectacles that Harold Daniel used to wear on Lanzhi, he'd look remarkable. In fact, you tried it on the magazine.
Picture, yes, he did look like him.
The photograph in the programme, and he looked extremely like him. I'm sure Harold would be very pleased with the way the lad's riding just now.
Yeah, I think you would today.
Perhaps a little less tidy than Harold in his heyday. Here comes Troy Corser, gunning that Alstara Corona Suzuki through the pack after the first mistake of his season. And here's Norrie Hager now really scuffling with Chris Vermeulen, and Chris will be desperate to get past. If ever a man needed the points right now to reduce the gap on Troy Corser, it's that man Vermeulen, and it's that man Lanzhi, number 757, who's making it impossible. Here comes Chris.
Got up the inside. Has he got it stopped?
Oh, yes he has.
Yes he has.
What a magician.
Yep.
Chris
Gone
Vermeulen.
a little bit wide, but
Chris Vermeulen goes through. Now Hager's trying to line him up for a Lanzhi move, but he's not close enough. So Vermeulen now, can he set his sights on Lorenzo Lanzhi? Has he got any chance of clawing back the distance? We've had 14 laps, 10 laps remain. But in the last lap, because Hager and Vermeulen were dusting one another up, they were actually 0.8 of a second slower than Lorenzo Lanzhi. Now, can Chris do anything to pick his pace back up? That's what he needs to do.
He needs to do, and he's got 10 laps to do it, so there's plenty time still.
Well, of course, he can't exactly relax with Nitro Norrie breathing fumes right behind him.
Now the danger is that Norrie will try one of those sort of block passes and start holding Chris up. And the sensible thing to do would be to stick on the back of Chris if possible and hope he can tow Hager up to Lanzhi.
There's Lanzhi, 57. That is number 77, trailing in the World Championship by 77 points behind Troy Corser, who's currently in 18th place.
Not after today, he's not, I would suggest.
After today, he isn't, but wouldn't 25 points make a huge... Well, 20 points would be a big help, but 20... if he made 20 points, he'd be trailing by the same amount, number 57 points, as this guy has on his bike. If he could get 25, it would be down to 52. The rich number that James Toseland used to harvest victories with until he got over and took over the ill-fated number 1 plate. Crossed the line then, 15 laps complete. 140.7, 140.8, 40.13. He's not making any ground at the moment on Lanzhi. Lanzhi is looking so capable at the front. He's riding really, really solidly.
He's obviously been out training. He doesn't look like he's slowing down much.
He certainly doesn't. Well, Chris Walker did say that he had remarked upon the fact that Lanzhi was going to be a danger man all weekend. And Chris, if you're sitting comfortably at home enjoying a few cups of tea or whatever you might choose to be entertaining yourself with, I hope you're enjoying this race. I hope you're comfortable. We look forward to seeing you back. At the moment, Vermeulen still second, Hager bothering him. Where's Lanzhi gaining his time? He's able to maintain these lap speeds really, really healthily at the moment, James.
When Hager was dicing with him, this is Toseland going up the inside of Bostrom, I think.
Yep, James Toseland captures Ben Bostrom and captures 12th place right behind Gary McCoy, the tiny little freckled Australian who's lying 11th on the Petronas FP1.
All this close racing is making me nervous because I'm racing next weekend, you know, Jack, did I tell you?
Oh, you're at Goodwood.
Manx North for Goodwood Revival.
Way.
The best meeting of the year.
And you're up against the likes of Wayne Gardner and not the old Trout Mackenzie.
Mackenzie's having a go. We were out testing, sneaky testing last week at Mallory.
Who was faster?
Dear. I think he was, I don't know.
It'll be 1996 all over again. Here we go. That's 16 laps complete, so there's 8 laps to go now for these guys. 140.53, 140.54.
And whatever Vermeulen can do, it just seems that Lanzhi's got an answer to it. Just a 10th of a second here, 10th of a second there, but just enough. And so consistent, he's not making any mistakes.
It's a hugely impressive ride.
Very impressive ride.
Lorenzo Lanzhi, the 999 F05 for the first time in his career, having of course ridden the factory 749 Ducati for the Brill Ducati squad, the factory Supersports Ducati squad last season, and it ended up 5th overall, and obviously best Ducati by a street. Troy Corser across the line in 17th place, and at the moment he's about 8 seconds off the 15th place man and the final point scorer, Sebastian Junger.
So he's going to struggle with that.
Jambert's last up was a 42.26, Corser on a 40.9.
So he's only pulling a second and a bit. He's going to struggle to get up with them.
And
might get a point.
The reigning world champion has moved through into 11th place as Norrie Hager continues to pester Chris Vermeulen.
Tell you, perfect way of describing it. He's pestering.
He just doesn't
Will
go
you
away.
stop?
Will it be affecting Vermeulen's concentration on just putting together the fastest possible
Absolutely,
laps?
yes, it will be, yes.
And of course, what we want to do really is have a word with Norrie and say, look, for the sake of the championship, mate, let him go, follow him along for a bit.
Yeah, it's not his championship, is it?
It's not his championship, mate. He wants that 3rd place in the title, and he wants the points. And Vermeulen's done remarkably to get this far back into contention.
Yeah, from his start.
But Lanzhi just must be impressing everybody around here. He was 0.3 of a second quicker than Chris on that last lap, and he's got an advantage now of 1.9 seconds as they cross the line. So the thick end of 2 seconds ahead.
This is impressive, leading from the front, pole position, and apart from that small mistake in the first race, and it was a small mistake that led to a big penalty, he hasn't put a foot wrong all weekend.
You know, David Tardozzi's actually watched Lanzhi since he was first racing in the 125cc GP bike championship in Italy. Followed his progress when he went into 250 GPs, and it was his decision to place him in Rossano Innocenti's team, Rock's Ducati team, in 2003. Lanzhi won 4 rounds. That was in European Superstock, finishing on the podium twice more. Lost out in the battle for the Superstock title with, would you believe, Michel Fabrizio, then riding Suzuki, by just 3 points. So he was a very close runner-up in European Superstock and then moved into World Supersport.
He's having a good day here.
He's having a terrific day here, and those super consistent lap times are meaning that he's being able to leave behind this brawl between Chris Vermeulen and Norrie Haga. Well, you would say that on a performance like this today, James, there's oh look, he's just working it cohesively and so purposefully into that final turn, and that allows him to immediately open up a 3 or 4 length gap on Norrie Haga. But Norrie has it back soon enough when we get to these streaky little wiggly bits. There doesn't seem to be any hiccup here in the performance of the twin-cylinder 1000cc Ducati against those 4-cylinder 1000s.
No, and it's a fact that some circuits are going to suit the twin better than the 4s, and this certainly seems to be one of those that suits the twin-cylinder. I know it's easy to say that because they're up front, but it would seem that the twins are just as good as anything else around here.
Is that the sheer torque and stability through these long U-turns?
Yeah, torque's good. Also, the sort of smooth and torquey power that they deliver is usually better for wearing tyres, although there has been cases where the Ducatis have worn the tyres out more than anything else. Namely, Phillip Island, Ducatis went through a spell of roosting tyres to pieces and bits falling off them. But most circuits, especially twisty ones, Ducatis seem to be easy on the tyre.
This is Troy Corser. He's in 17th place. 17th place. Ahead of him, Brignoli's Caracci Ducati and Sebastian Junger.
I think you'll find that 75 was behind him, so he's actually in front. I think you'll find he's in 16th.
He's now in 16th place, so he's just 1 place off scoring points. So the clear World Championship leader, Troy Corser, making his way back into contention. He's got Sebastian Junger's Yamaha Franzau 1 ahead of him.
And this will be the longest 6 laps of Lanzhi's career and life. He'd just be praying nothing goes wrong with the bike, he doesn't make a mistake, he doesn't run off. Generally, when you're this far in front, and it's going to be a real big win for you, your biggest win of your career, this will be taking a long, long, long time.
Do you know, he's absolutely super consistently holding a gap of a whisker under 2 seconds, about 1.96 it was on that last lap.
The last 5 laps have all been in the same 10th of a second.
So tremendous robotic riding there, and notice in the background number 71 Yukio Kageyama having a belting race. He is lapping absolutely at the same time as the leaders. That last lap of his was just a few hundredths slower than Chris Vermeulen in 2nd place. Here is Vermeulen with Ten Kate. What a race going on here. Incidentally, Arbe is 7th, Neukirchner 8th, Steve Martin a brilliant 9th, Frankie Killy 10th, James Tosland 11th, Gary McCoy 12th. Chris Vermeulen is he's just got a little bit of air between himself and Norrie Haga. If he could just hold that gap. Lorenzo Lanzhi leads. Could it be that Chris Vermeulen has got anything left to give in the remaining just over 5 laps now as we go into the final turn? And that gap looks a little smaller than to me, James. It just looks a fraction smaller.
It's going to have to be smaller. I'll tell you.
Lanzhi crosses the line. Vermeulen crosses the line.
We're all waiting for the screen here. We stop looking out the window.
We want to know what the gap is. We want to know what the gap is. And Vermeulen is really, to me, on the charge.
I think it has closed up slightly.
Can Vermeulen do anything about this? Yukio Kageyama, he's lighting up the blue touch paper, probably because he can see his old mate Norrie Haga ahead of him and he's keen to do something about it. Or would you believe, at a crucial point like this, ladies and gentlemen, our timing screen is frozen solid.
It's jammed. We broke it, Jack.
We're done. Our tension in the commentary box has seized up the timing screen. It has obviously communicated itself to the timing screen. So we've got as much idea of what's going on as you have. The dirt's being kicked up, and I think that Vermeulen is really beginning. We've seen him produce some really torrid closing laps in previous rounds, James.
Lanzhi's last lap was at 41, so he has slipped out the 40s now.
How do you know it was a 41?
Because he just came up on the bottom of the actual screen we're actually watching there, Jack.
I do beg your pardon.
And Vermeulen's with a 40.6, so he has closed up slightly, but he needs more than this.
He's got to close the gap quicker.
He has.
Is it possible for him to? At the moment, he may just have broken.
Yeah, at least
broken Hager.
Yeah,
so
he hasn't got Hager to worry about.
Right. So if he could just now. Well, this is interesting. This is Vermeulen looking concentrated. Lorenzo Lanzhi riding what must absolutely be flat out the race of his life. And that was James rattling away here, trying to get the screen to work, but it's not going to. We've had it.
And just 3 laps to go now. I don't think Vermeulen's quick enough. He's enough quicker than Lanzhi to catch him. There's only 3 laps left.
I love the way that Lorenzo Lanzhi describes himself as ill-tempered, touchy, but basically a good guy. Hey, our screen's back in action, and I get you'll be a bit ill-tempered if he lets this one slip. But right now, he did lose 0.3 of a second on that last lap to Vermeulen. The gap, though, is still 1.16. Surely it's enough.
I don't think it is now.
It might be a bit less now.
I think 2 laps after this one.
Oh, this is some race going on. Can Chris Vermeulen do anything about the leader?
Surely Lanzhi's just done enough.
It's just the moment when you want to see a back marker wobbling round in front of you.
It's not going to be ideal, that.
Oh dear, no. It's not what you want.
He's got enough.
He's got enough, and he's sustaining his speed. You can see that he's just drifted into the 140, the early 141s in the last 3 laps. Mind you, what I was going to say, James, if there was anyone that you'd put your money on as a pursuer in a position like this, then Vermeulen might be your man.
He's the man, definitely. Consistent, doesn't make any mistakes, fit as a fiddle, doesn't fade towards the end of a race, can handle a tyre when it's going off and slide it about with the best of them. And yeah, he would be the man that would worry you coming from behind. If that doesn't sound a bit rude.
Oh, crossing the line now. Lorenzo Lanzhi, he crosses the line as the leader. He's got 2 laps to go as we approach the climax to the second race, and his lead was 0.905, and he lost exactly 0.2 of a second, 41.235 against Vermeulen's 41.035, and that meant Vermeulen took 0.6 of a second out of Hager. I think he's put Hager out of the immediate equation, but somehow he's got to find it in him to squeeze the man in front. He's got to get within squeezing distance of Lorenzo Lanzhi.
Lanzhi's got to make a mistake now to lose this one. He's got to do. Vermeulen has got the bit between his teeth, though.
Troy Corser was still in 16th place as he passed us on the previous lap, by the way, so at the moment he's not adding to his point score in this race. The gap between them in the championship before this race was 77 points. And, well, this is fascinating. Look at Vermeulen. He's got to somehow keep control of himself while just laying everything on the line to get himself in line. Better to take 20 points than no points at this stage in the game.
And I don't think he's close enough. I just can't see it with 1 lap after the end of this lap.
And Lanzhi has been working. He's maintained a point. He's only lost a second. Despite everything, he's only lost a second in all. And Troy Corser's 14th. Troy Corser, amazingly, and it's Ben Bostrom who's partly to blame. Poor Bostrom has slipped back to 16th place. He's had a moment.
And I think Corser can get 13th.
And Sebastian Junger has been passed by Troy Corser. Corser has now got 2 points to his name.
Corser by far the fastest man on the track now. He's still in low 40s. 41, sorry.
41.7.
Yeah.
141.7, so he's half a second slower than these guys, and going into the last lap now, David Tardozzi will be chewing on his halitosis right now because he has seen the lad he's bravely brought through for the past few years, heading possibly for a debut race victory at World Superbikes in his debut outing with Xerox Ducati.
Vermeulen's just not close enough. Another lap, that's all he needed.
And Chris Vermeulen paying the price ultimately of that deplorable start, but he's still there putting the pressure on. So is Kageyama. Kageyama amazingly is closing the gap quite drastically on Nori Haga with a 140.7. He lapped at exactly the same pace as Vermeulen. Oh, Chris.
Vermeulen, he's trying everything and it's just not going to be enough, I think.
The racer in Vermeulen is just putting all the available rubber to the ground on the Tenkate Winston Honda. but incredibly mature riding from, well, there's two 23-year-olds together. What a pair of racers. Lorenzo Lanzhi, he's still there. He may not be able to run any further than the end of the drive in a hotel, but he certainly,
doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter when you get him on a motorcycle. The lad who likes just sort of hanging around with the team and waking up gently at 8 o'clock in the morning is waking up to the fact that he's about to become a World Superbike race winner. Yep. Or is he?
He is. He's got to be. He's got to be close enough.
Number 57, Lorenzo Lanzhi, his first ever outing on the Xerox Ducati. He's only got 2 turns to do.
Surely it's enough.
He comes round at the final turn, 14 here at the Lousy String, and takes victory in round 10 of the World Superbike Championships for Xerox Ducati, ahead of Chris Vermeulen. Nori Haga finishes third. A barnstorming climax to the race by Yukio Kageyama. He finishes in. Will have pushed Lanzhi up the World Championship scales a bit as well. Lanzhi wins it there. What an unusual looking sheet that is. If you just take the one off the top, it makes sense. Steve Martin, what a fine 9th place ahead of Killian. Look at that Corser, thanks to Gary McCoy going out on the